Using white in watercolors is cheating. Sorry for yelling. I mean, at some point you probably ran into this comment in an online forum or a video on YouTube. But is it true that using white in watercolor is cheating? What would happen if you use it? And has anybody famous used it and gotten away with it? After spending 4 years of my life learning watercolor and watching countless of videos about this topic, I will answer all of these questions and share some thoughts about it. But first let me explain, there is 3 types of whites that exist in watercolor. The first one is the one that we have in question today, the paint. This one can come in 2 different variations, but more on that later. The second one is the paper we paint on. This is usually where we hear preserve your highlights idea, while others like myself try to get rid of the pure white of the paper unless it's absolutely needed. The third one is one that causes most trouble with all beginners and most of intermediates, and even some people that have advanced skills in watercolor. I actually haven't heard anyone address it as a white, but it technically is a white, and that is the water that we use. And I will explain more about this later alongside a fourth type of white that you probably have never really thought about. But now let me tell you about the 2 variations of white. One is watercolor white and the other one is gouache. Now here's where people get in trouble using white. If you're entering a watercolor competitions, the rules are that you shouldn't use white at all, or that you are allowed to use it, but only on a very small portion of your painting. The white that the participants are allowed to use is either watercolor or gouache paint. Since watercolor is primarily transparent in nature, there are people with strong opinions about using white in watercolors. Gouache being more opaque than watercolors, and while it is also a different medium altogether, you don't see oil painters trying to use acrylic or watercolor in their canvas. So why should you use gouache with watercolor? Well, tell that to one of the most famous and amazing painters in the world, John Singer Sargent. He's very well known for his watercolors, and he's also known to have used white gouache to aid finishing his paintings. He believed that you shouldn't be constrained with materials. He believed that whatever tool we use should be in the best service to our painting. Or at least that's what I understood from reading about him and his character around painting. We should use white if that will give us the opportunity to create something we are proud of, regardless of what the elitists say. I mean, think about it, why wouldn't you use a tool that was made for your practice? It's like a farmer refusing to use a tractor because he thinks that makes him less of a farmer for not using his own 2 hands and body to get his work done. The work still needs to be done, and it's still hard work even with all the help. So you're not less of a painter or less skilled or cheating because you use white. However, there is a difference between using it when you need it and using it as a crutch. You want to learn when you actually need to use white in watercolor, and the only way of knowing when you actually need it is by knowing how to use the fourth white I was talking about. The last type of white is one that happens over time, and one that still to this day I mess up most of my values when putting washes down. This white is made up from 2 things, the paper you're painting on and how much water you're painting with. And yes, I know, you might be thinking, aren't those 2 types of white as well? Yes they are. But the combination of the 2 makes an extra type of white that is the result of your paint and paper drying. To be able to foresee how light the color you put down will actually be, this is one of the hardest things to master in watercolor. And the only way to master this is something that you probably don't want to hear, but it's true. It just takes time and practice. But there's a way for you to practice this in a more systematic way, and that you can see improvement over time in a more linear fashion than just painting. I am creating the ultimate guide to watercolor, and I want to share that with you. So I will leave the link in my description so you can sign up to receive the free resource once it comes out. But if you don't want to wait, then subscribe to this channel because I share the sections of that book in most of my videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.